Guys, welcome to episode 3 of my MTG Commander for Noobs series. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to upgrade your very first Precon. I know there's a lot of you out there that are getting into the game, you're getting your first deck, but the whole process of upgrading your deck is really daunting. You're scared that you might ruin it, you don't even know where to start, yada yada. I've got my Jeskai Striker Precon, and you know, I'm looking to upgrade it. So I wanted to show you guys sort of how my thought process is when I'm looking to upgrade a Precon, and hopefully you can take some of the stuff maybe that you learn in this video and apply it to your own deck. So without further ado, let's get into the deck. Okay, so we're going to be doing all these deck edits on Archidekt as usual. So if you've never used Archidekt, I highly recommend it. The main reason is that you can individually tag all your cards, right? And that's going to be the very first thing you're going to want to do. So once you load up your deck list onto Archidekt, you can do it. If you're doing a Precon, it has all the Precon decks saved on there, so just make sure you click on Precon and then find the deck that you are editing, put it in, and you are good to go. So you're going to see here that I've already gone through and done these tags. So what do I mean by tags, right? And this is the first thing you want to do. So you want to go through all of the cards individually, right? Click on this little arrow button here, and you can see here it says categories, right? And you can create new categories, and you want to basically look at the card and say, what is this card doing in the deck, right? So for example, adaptive training pose, it will have the type by default, so it's got artifact here, but when you look at this, it is doing copy stuff, and it is synergizing with instants and sorcery. So these are two things that I wanted to track in my deck, so I made a copy category and a instant and sorcery synergy category. If you want to look at what categories I've made here, we've got some more like board wipe, burn, cantrip, all that stuff, right? Now, why is this important? Well, if you were doing this like in paper, right, you can't have cards be in multiple categories at once because you only have one physical version of the card, right? Whereas if we go here, group by categories multiple, I can now see that cards will turn up in each of these categories even if they appear in them multiple times, right? So for example, Shiny Impetus here is in the attack deterrent category, but if we go down to ramp here, it should be also here, Shiny Impetus, right? So the reason this is important is because you want to be sort of keeping track of how much of certain card categories we've got, right? Because you want a certain amount of ramp, a certain amount of card draw, a certain amount of this, that, whatever the deck's strategy is. So this is going to give you a really good sort of almost bird's eye view, shall we say, view of the deck, and you can take that step back and go, right, okay, what is my deck structure actually look like, right? Because one of the common mistakes that a lot of new players make, right, is that they grab the deck and they just look through the deck and look for a card that they want to take out and then put a card they want to take in, right? And you know, that's all well and good, but the reality is these Precons are built rather well. Most cards have a reason to be in there, so you're not gonna just find a card that is just outright bad, right? Very rare. So that just makes, you know, deck building quite difficult when you're choosing what to take out. It's all well and easy trying to find cards to put in, but it's that taking out part that's quite hard. So this category system is really good because it's gonna help with that, and I'm gonna give you an example of why that is. So let's have a look at this deck. So we're gonna come back to type here. So the Jeskai Striker deck. Now, this is a instant and sorcery spell slingy type deck, right? But obviously it's a Precon, and with Precons they don't build them as complete finished decks, highly optimized, shall we say. They would rather give you a few different flavors of different strategies, and then you can sort of choose which one you want to build into more, right? I love this. I think this is really good because again, it gives you that progress, and the decks are still good enough to play and function really well. It's not like they're not functional, but they're also not optimized, right? So, you know, don't think that, oh yeah, this Precon is just, yeah, it's perfect. I mean, you can just leave it as it is, but it's not optimal to do that, okay? And if you're on this video, I'm guessing you want to, you know, try and make the deck a little bit better. So where do we start? So once you've done all those categories, now we can have a look at how much of each thing is in the deck, right? So for example, with this deck, we've got 7 spells that copy, right? Our commander is also copying, so that's what she's trying to do. We've got 6 cards that burn, right? So that deal direct damage. We've got some cantrips in here, which works really well with the deck, right? There's all these little things here. We can also look at like our just normal stuff, like our creature count, amount of enchantments we have, yada, yada, yada. We've got 15 instances, 15 sorceries, blah, 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 blah. Now, what's going to help a lot as well is if you played a few games with the deck, right? Because just doing this is not enough. You need to get some experience to play with the deck because you need to learn what you like, what feels good, what are you trying to do more of, and what do you maybe not care about so much of, right? So I'll give you an example with this deck. When I've had the most fun in this deck and when I've like won games of this, it has been actually a lot of time through like burning. I'll give you an example, right? My last game, I finished the game with a big old electro dominance cast. I dealt like a buttload of damage to my opponent, and I love the fact that I could just then cast another spell on top of that. So I really, really like the whole free spell sort of stuff. Caldera Pyamore is another one of my absolute favorite cards in this deck. It just feels so good to just be like getting a nice big dragon while also just dealing direct damage straight to our opponent. And I just started to realize, you know what, I really enjoy the burn element of this deck of like casting instants and sorceries, right? It was really, really fun for me. So it got me thinking, well, when I've done all my categories, I realized there's only actually 6 cards that burn, but hey, maybe I could increase that, okay? So what's some other things that this deck is also trying to do? So a good way to look at this is look at your backup commander, because usually that'll be a little bit different. So we've got Elsha, Threefold Master. Now this card, she creates monk tokens. So essentially this is a bit more of a go widey strategy, make loads of tokens, and then they all have prowess. So you use the instant and sorceries to essentially power up your creatures. So it's still an instant and sorcery deck, but it's more trying to kill your opponent with creatures than it is the instants and sorceries. They are just being used more of like a buff, like an engine sort of thing. That's very cool, but you know, from what I've played and stuff like that, I've not seen as much enjoyment out of that style. I've definitely prefer the whole, yeah, let's burn, let's do some direct damage, and on top of that, can I copy that so I can still double damage, and ping my opponents with like gutter snipe and you know, all that fun stuff. So yeah, that was my first sort of thought. Can I start to make this deck maybe a little bit more burny? So when I'm thinking about cards I want to take out, you know, we want to just kind of lean into one strategy because we don't want to be doing too many things at once because it's going to make the deck less consistent. So straight away, I went on to these cards that create like all these tokens, and then I just give them a little red tag, right? So if you go over here, it says other options. You can give them a little color. I put red, and that is like a sign that I want to take that card out. So here, I just went straight to create monk tokens, and I just tag them all red, right? They are very cool, and it's a shame because, you know, 2 of these are like the new cards in the deck, but you know, we don't want to be doing everything, and I want to lean more into burn over token creation. So I thought that would be a good place to start. So we've tagged these 3 cards that make these little monk tokens. Some other stuff we've got tagged Rite of Replication. Again, this is a card that's making tokens. I have got an actual separate category here for token creation. Now I didn't want to take too much token creation out, but you can see a lot of these are. Yeah, I'll just look at this because generally this is where I went to most for my like cuts. We don't want to take them all out because it is important for Spellslinger decks to have blockers. So some of these like cheaper ones like Young Pyromancer and Third Path Iconoclast, this is really good for creating those little blockers. So I didn't want to take those out as well. But we have got 6 cards here that create tokens that I thought, you know what, let's get those out, because then that makes some space. We can take some token creation cards out, and then we can put some burn spells in. Now, I already knew some stuff that I wanted to put in. Straight away, off the bat, I wanted to get my man Gandalf in here. I know he's all about the instants and sorceries. When I looked at him, he did burn damage, which was fantastic, and copy. So I was like, yes, Gandalf the Grey needs to be in this deck. So yeah, we grabbed him. I noticed I had Glamdring in my collection, and when I read this card, I was like, this is going to be perfect. If I play this, I slap this on my commander, it's going to be a really, really good time. We're going to be powering her up really high. We're going to be getting free spells, triggering of abilities. It is such a fantastic addition to this deck. So I don't want to go through too much of all these yet, but basically this is what you want to be doing, right? Decide where you want your deck to go, right? Because when you've got a Precon, it's going to have a few different pathways. You know, there's some different themes going on. Even with this deck, right? We've got some others, like we have a attack deterrence, right? There's a few cards in here that deter my opponent from attacking me, so I could even lean into that if I wanted to, you know. We've got some cantrip spells. Maybe I put a few more cantrips in if I like the whole thing of like that one cost draw card sort of vibe, you know. But a lot of it is figuring out how are you trying to win the game. Like that's the most important part, I think, right? And when I think of this deck, I love the whole, you know, jab cross combo of cheap spell and then copy the big one. I think that's kind of what makes it unique. It's not trying to cast as many spells as possible. It's just trying to get a little prime with the little jab and then big cross, massive, expensive spell that we copy that targets something, ideally, so we can use Shiko and Narset to copy that card. Like the Electro Dominance, right? It targets, it does deal direct damage, so if we've got enough mana, bam, bam, and we can just use one of our little one-cost spells, cast that, and then smash. Big damage, right? So that's kind of the theme I wanted to go down. And then you just start to take away anything that kind of doesn't fit in that theme, or cards that maybe you just draw and they don't really do much. So for example, Mangara the Diplomat, the last game I got this card. I played it, but it didn't really do much for me. I could see where it would be useful, but the reality is this is a 4-cost creature. It is kind of getting in the way. I don't want to cast this on turn 4 because of Shiko and Narset, so I would rather replace this with like a 5-cost creature like Gandalf, which isn't going to get in the way of my turn 4 drop, and do a little bit more for me and actually be synergistic with the deck. So that's one route you can go down for deck editing. Another route as well is just mana base stuff, guys, right? Like I would love to upgrade the mana base in this deck. Where would you go first, you ask? Well, for me, tap lands. Get those tap lands out, because any lands that enter tapped, they are generally just slowing down your deck, especially if they don't have a way to come in untapped at all, right? So like lands that say this land enters tapped unless you control an island or a mountain is nowhere near as bad, because the chances of you having an island or a mountain is fairly high. So this is a land that's coming in untapped and tapping for 2 different manas. However, stuff like these scry lands, this land enters tapped and then I get to scry one. That is without fail. This land is always going to enter tapped. So straight away, this deck has got 3 of those scry lands in. I could take all 3 of those out and replace them with lands that are not tap lands. They don't have to be the mad money ones. You don't need to put in shocks or anything like that. You know, you could just put in something else like the 2 mana bounce lands. I know technically they enter tapped, but they also ramp you, so they're a little bit better. Or, you know, there's other lands like the new ones that come with in Dustmourne and Ether Drift, like those sort of ones. Yeah, there's a few different ones that you could get in here. If you want to spend a bit more money, then like the Battle Bond lands and stuff is really, really nice. So yeah, you've got options, guys, but that's where I would be going first if I wanted to upgrade this mana base, which I definitely want to do with this deck, because I have noticed playing this deck a few times, I've just not had the colors that I needed, and it's kind of just ruined my, you know, momentum. So to summarize, go through your deck, tag all of the cards, right? And you're going to notice as well why some cards are so good. Like, let's look at Gandalf, for example, right? This guy, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different categories, 5 different things that this card is doing. So cards like this that are doing so many different things are always going to be so good, because they're so just flexible. They're doing so much for you. You're getting so much bang for your buck. Yeah, so it's really nice. In terms of cards to add, I like to do the whole like command zone thing where they 10 in, 10 out. That just gives you a nice rounded number. Like I had more than 10 here, but I've just dumbed it down, brought it down to 10, and do it. Whenever you go to make the little edit, do like 10, do 10, because 10's a good number because it's a 10th of the deck. It's a lot more than that if you're not counting your lands and stuff. So it's a decent chunk of the deck that you are changing. So you should notice a fairly big change after these 10 cards. Another thing to consider is just like the mana value of your deck. So when I was looking at this deck, I was thinking, do you know what? I want more low cost stuff and more higher cost stuff and less of this middle stuff. The reason for that, again, it's the jab cross combo, right? It's I want the cheap spell and then the big one, right? Whereas like these free cost cards, they're really just getting in the way because they're not really powerful enough to be the cross, but they are also too big to be the jab. I don't know if these like sort of fight references are being clear to you guys, but been doing lots of Muay Thai lately, so that's why it's in my head. But yeah, that's kind of where I've got this idea from. So yeah, mana value can also be like a big key factor of where to start when you want to start taking your cuts and maybe what you want to start putting in. And guys, if you want to take that next step and you want to actually build a deck from scratch, then I have the perfect video for you right here.